Hi, I'm Shantae Javon Taylor, neuroscientist, success strategist, and founder of the OptiMind Institute. Someone asked me recently how I came to specialize in empowering minds within personal, professional, organizational, and business development. And this is how I responded. I guess you could say I changed my major. I changed my major from clinical neuropsychology to organizational psychology. Oh, there were so many developments. I'm going to try to stay on track. So I was over the mind study at this governmental agency, and I had a lot of autonomy. I had a lot of certainty of the project we were on, but I was also operating in my genius. So there was a couple of things that I was learning about myself. Like, I need to operate in my genius zone. I need to have a lot of autonomy where I don't have to answer to a bunch of people, or people are not micromanaging me, because I've had those positions before. I felt like I was operating in my power. And then also I had a team where they were being affected by outside influences, and I couldn't have that for my team. I needed them to be focused and productive and have clarity on what we're doing. But if their brains are being impacted by feeling disrespected, being emotional. I mean, there were times when they were literally be crying in the bathroom, not because of me, people in the hierarchy. So I started to see the impact of the employee experience on their emotions, on their productivity, how they see themselves, their self-confidence and self-worth. And I would naturally try to help them to manage that, but I would also speak up for them, because I was not afraid to speak up to anyone in the hierarchy. But I also had a level of influence because of my positioning, right? So I found that more engaging to what I was doing in the graduate world, where I would work on the weekends as a graduate student, as a neuropsychologist in training, where I would sit for 8 to 12 hours at a time telling people what was wrong with their brains. It felt defeating. It felt time consuming. It felt like I wasn't operating in my genius zone. So I ended up actually helping the caretakers manage their emotions more so than what you could do with someone who already had Alzheimer's, essentially. It was like the caretaker was going through a lot of things, like fear of the future, fear that their loved one is going to get hurt because they're losing their memories, overwhelm and stress and fatigue, because now they have to take care of their family and work, but they also have to figure out how they're going to make sure their loved one is taken care of on a daily basis. And maybe that's financially stressful, it's time consuming, but it's also, one more thing around that is they're grieving because they're watching their loved one, their parent, their father decline before their eyes, right? So for me, neuroscience took a turn, like understanding the brain took a turn for me, that like everyday people need to understand about their brain and how they're affecting other people's brain, but also how to manage their own brain so they're not as affected by people who are affecting their brain. And there was a point that it became more frustrating because I hadn't pieced together how I was going to be more powerful in my influence of demonstrating how they were impacting other people's brain. I can only kind of tell them in general, like, this is the outcome when they feel like this. This affects their productivity. It affects, how they show up on a day-to-day basis. But I hadn't yet linked neuroscience to professional development yet, to the organizational hierarchy, because I was still in the realm of diagnosis. So when I left the organization, I got clearer. So I went on the journey of understanding neuroscience as it relates to the organizational experience. Like everyday people, how are they being impacted in the workplace, but also how can they heighten their performance in the workplace? But even after I started to learn neuroscience in a new way and repurpose it in a more powerful way, I still was talking like a professor. I still was talking over people's heads. I was too sciencey. I hadn't found my personality. I hadn't found a way to speak and translate what I knew into something that was consumable, understandable, and people can translate that and take action in their organizations or in their lives. So that took time to navigate all this knowledge and this new information, this new perspective into something consumable and transformational.